Fraud Fighters.
Dun, 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 dun.
The Fraud Fighters from American One. We have Colin Martin and Angela Hadley. Good morning.
Welcome back. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
We're always happy to be here.
Yeah.
We were just talking about you guys deal with fraud, and I just said you get a lot of calls from elderly individuals, and you educated me. It's not just our vulnerable senior population that is vulnerable to these scams. Tell us a little bit about the catfishing romance side of things.
Yeah, so they find a way to hit every demographic, right? From younger kids looking for jobs, and then you have a job scam, and it's like, oh, hey, wire these funds to buy your materials and your computer, things like that. Yep. So they're hitting younger demographics looking for a job, and they know what they're looking for, so they target that way. Of course, older individuals, maybe they've seen that recently they've had a spouse that passed away, and then they're going to target them from that romance scam angle, which is always so sad, like particularly heartbreaking. But same thing, they say, hey, I love you. They work on them for months. So that's what we were kind of talking about earlier, is this is not like a short game thing. People truly fall in love. They feel like they've known these people for months. They see pictures that, obviously it is catfishing. It's not necessarily the real person, but they truly believe they're in love. And even us, as their financial institution, their families, it's really hard to convince them. And they're wiring funds to somebody that they think, oh, well, they just needed money to come home and see me. And then, of course, it never comes to fruition.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
You were sharing a story before we started that your picture has been used on dating sites from people.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, Andy. I got a call from a friend who was like, hey, are you and Curran all right? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, your picture, I saw it on Bumble.
Can you imagine? You probably were just floored.
Well, I mean, I was like, who wants to use some middle-aged white woman from Jackson's picture as their catfish profile?
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then he said, well, it wasn't your name, but it is you.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if maybe, you were...
That's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, like you said, they will seek every demographic. They have no boundaries. There's no code of ethics within this world of scams. So at the bank, are you getting those calls a lot?
Unfortunately, we do at the credit union, and it's not, it's across the gamut. Every financial institution, I'm sure, deals with that. We obviously try to make sure that we do what we can and try to support the member, but that's what's tricky. Specific with wire fraud is how fast the funds move.
Yes.
Is that it's guaranteed. So those other financial institutions, when they receive it, they don't necessarily place a hold or anything like that. It's gone.
Sure.
And so it's really tricky. We have had some successful, situations where we've been able to contact the financial institution and say, hey, this person fell for a scam. This is kind of the situation, but it's rare, honestly. Okay. And so that's why we want to kind of particularly talk about wire fraud today, is because you really have to know what you're doing and who you're sending funds to. The other situation is business email compromise for your smaller businesses. You get an email, you think it's, we just have to, move the funds to this account to buy a new property for our new business. Yep. Turns out the email's not legitimate, and you've wired funds, and now they're gone. It's too late.
Yeah, it's scary, and of course I think everyone knows someone who's been a victim of a significant amount of wire fraud, unfortunately.
Well, you mentioned how fast we can move it, Colin, with Cash Apps and Venmo and PayPal. I mean, I can pay somebody back in a split second that covered dinner last night, but what are some of the pitfalls?
Well, again, once that money is in that and you've transferred it, it's gone. I've had people tell me stories about them trying to talk with these vendors to get their money back that they've sent to the wrong person, or when they've tried to confirm the number, it sends it to another phone number that's actually the scammer that's hacked their Venmo or Cash App. And it's gone.
I'm going to show you another scam too with Venmo. Can I use your phone to make a quick phone call?
Yeah.
Just Venmo.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's one thing you got to watch out too for.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
No, Andy, you may not use my phone ever at any time.
It's good. You shouldn't let anyone use your phone for that exact reason.
Yeah. We learned something last year as we were trying to get to see Taylor Swift. It's like everybody was in mayhem, and a friend of mine got tickets, and the people said, hey, just to let you know we're legitimate, send $100, and then we'll send it right back to you. Like, just to show that, we're honest, we've got an open line of communication. Send $100.
Gone.
Goodbye.
Gone.
And they made $100.
Yeah.
You know, and they probably did that 30 times that
exactly.
To your point, they're
Yep.
tugging on people's heartstrings. You're
Correct.
getting
Oh,
ready
yeah.
to go to Taylor Swift
Yeah.
with your
Yep.
kids.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're not
All the
thinking
Swifties.
rationally.
Yep.
Yeah. So why should someone? Why should we choose a physical location to do these transactions instead of right on the phone?
Yeah, so I mean, we have obviously the personalized service. You get to
Yeah.
talk to an actual human. You know you're talking to your financial institution that's looking out for you. And when we see members come in, like Angela was saying, when they have these stories of these scams that they're really tugging on their heartstrings, we have the outside opinion that's like, hey, you might want to look into this a little bit further because this is showing us red flags because we don't have that emotional tie to
Sure.
that individual that's trying to get us to send the money.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we have the personalized service, and then we also have tailored financial advice. So if there is times where you fall victim, unfortunately, we can help you go through that, help create a plan to get you back on track, where these other companies are more just designed to send money, transfer money, not hold money on there as a bank account.
It's getting
Thanks,
hard online too. I was gonna say everything is starting to look different and
Yeah.
confusing. It's hard to be able to tell what's legit and what's not anymore with purchases.
The good thing with banks and credit unions, you know, we're federally regulated, and so we have all these rules that we have to follow, right? With unauthorized transactions, you're not held liable, but these newer fintechs aren't regulated in the same way. So they're not necessarily obligated, like your local financial institution, to work with you in that dispute process. So that's another
That's
really
good to
good
know.
reason.
And the money that's on these apps that you hold as your account, those aren't federally insured.
Right.
So once this individual falls victim to scam and that money's gone, it's gone. It's a nightmare to try to get in hold of those companies to get that money
Needle
back.
in a haystack to get
It
the
is.
money back.
It really
You're
is.
probably not going to get it back,
Yeah.
especially if it's phone transfer for sure.
Yeah.
Well, don't laugh at me, but when I go to the bank, I still get my little envelope of cash. And it's funny, I just went up north and my friend was like, do you have your envelope?
That's funny.
But I just think, cash is still king, and I think we need to remember that personal contact and kind of kicking it old school is maybe a safer way to roll.
And especially having access to get that cash.
Yeah.
Like to get the access to the cash off one of those apps is very difficult. You then have to send it to a financial institution to then be able to get it off of it. Where if your debit card's compromised or your account's compromised, we can still get you access to your cash that you have.
That's a great point.
Where once it's gone there's no access to it. It's just gone.
And from a budgeting perspective, right, it's so easy with the card. I'm pretty sure my son just thinks that thing reloads infinitely. Where with cash, it's tangible, and you can say, man, I really spent a lot on this vacation. We always try to do that with vacation. Like, okay, this is what we've got set outside. So when you start getting towards, day 3, 4, you can be like, okay, we're going a little hard and maybe slow it down a little bit.
Well, that's
It's
a great
helpful.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in. It's always great advice. What do you have planned this weekend? Busy weekend in downtown Jackson.
Yeah.
What do you guys have planned? Anything yet?
We are looking at moving.
Oh boy!
Gosh, that's
In the
no
heat,
fun.
yeah.
Oh
I love
wow!
it.
Oh, no.
Well, I can tell you, I just cleaned my garage in the heat for just a couple hours. I can't imagine moving in this heat.
Yeah.
No way.
No, be careful.
Good luck.
Yeah, our
Thank you.
previous guest remind us, stay
Yeah.
hydrated, stay in the shade, all those good
Absolutely.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone thinks they've been a victim of something, they can give you a call, and of course, you guys will help them. Of course.
Yep, we have
Absolutely.
our website, has a ton of really
Yes.
good information too, thefraudfighters.org.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us. The Fraud Fighters here in Jackson, Michigan, looking out for us. Angela Hadley and Colin Martin from American One. More of the show right after this quick break.